I thought I was doomed in Germany until the strong cleaner changed everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows through the cobblestone streets, but I felt like I was lost in darkness. Panic gripped my chest, tightening like a vice. My heart raced. I had just received the news, my job was gone. The laughter of tourists echoed around me, but I felt like an island, isolated in a sea of confusion and despair. I stumbled down the narrow street, past cafes where couples whispered sweet nothings. My tears burned my cheeks, salt mixing with the cool air, as I replayed the cruel words of my boss in my mind. How could they do this to me? I had given my everything. I remembered my mother's voice, the way she always told me to be brave, to fight. But right then, all I felt was hopeless. How would I pay the rent? How would I find another job, especially in a foreign country, with just a few broken phrases of the language in my pocket? As I walked past a small alley, something caught my attention. A flash of color amidst the grey buildings. It was an old woman, scrubbing the ground with fierce determination. Her muscles flexed as she worked, each stroke as if she were battling the grime of the world. I paused, captivated. There was something oddly powerful about her presence. A strong, weathered face framed by a wild halo of silver hair, she radiated an energy I couldn't comprehend. Whispers surrounded her, people murmuring about her odd habits. They called her the cleaner, but she was so much more. Some said she spoke to shadows. Others claimed she could see secrets hidden in the dirt she scrubbed away. I pressed my back against the rough stone wall, curious, as if I were watching a live performance. Her hands moved rhythmically, and in that moment, I felt drawn to her strength as if she were pulling me from my dark thoughts. The air around me changed. It was still and heavy, like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. For a heartbeat, I thought I imagined it, but I swear I saw her glance in my direction. Her eyes, piercing and wise, locked onto mine. I felt a chill race down my spine. What did she see in me? Was it the despair? Was it the need for salvation? Suddenly, she dropped her brush, her gaze unwavering, and took a step forward. My breath caught. "You need help," she said. Her voice was deep, rough like sandpaper, but there was an undeniable warmth. It wrapped around me, a comfort I hadn't expected. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come. It was like my throat was stuck, tight and frozen. What can she do? I thought. I was desperate, yes, but could a stranger like this really change my fate? The doubt swirled, but the spark of something ignited in my chest. I was terrified and yet intrigued. Doomed or destined? One thought consumed me as her eyes bore into my soul. What if this was my chance to turn everything around? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With her intense gaze locked on mine, the silence stretched, a taut string ready to snap. I could hardly breathe, battling a wave of emotions that swelled in me like an incoming tide. Perhaps it was the weariness of staring down the abyss of uncertainty that compelled me to step forward, or maybe it was the realization that I craved something to pull me from the brink. Yes, I stammered, my voice almost drowned by the bustling street around us. It felt like the world was merely a backdrop, and I was stuck in this moment with her. I need help. The admission hung in the air, heavy but liberating. The cleaner nodded slowly, as if taking my measure. She gestured for me to follow her into the alley. Deep down, hesitation clutched at me, warning me about following a stranger into the unknown. Yet, something deep inside urged me onward, driven by the flicker of hope her presence ignited. As I stepped into her world, the narrow alley resonated with the sound of water splashing against concrete, and the scent of soap lingered in the air, oddly comforting. It was here that the chaos of the outside world faded. I could see her tools of trade, rickety cart filled with buckets, mops, and various cleaning supplies like an artist's palette. "Do you know how to clean?" she asked, her tone neither kind nor harsh, just matter of fact. "I've never really done it before," I admitted, a blush creeping into my cheeks. "But I can learn. Learning is the first step," she replied, a hint of a smile breaking through the sternness of her features. "And sometimes, cleaning is more than just removing dirt. It's about finding clarity, making space for something new." I nodded, intrigued. "Are you saying that cleaning is like a fresh start?" She paused, her expression thoughtful. "Exactly. Sometimes we must scrub away the past to see what lies beneath." Her words burrowed into my mind, stirring something dormant. Maybe this was a sign, or merely a distraction from my troubles. With each new swipe of the mop she handed me, I felt lighter, even amidst the burdens I carried. As the days turned into weeks, I found solace in the rhythmic motion of cleaning. Each day with the old woman offered new lessons in resilience and strength. My hands grew calloused, but my heart felt oddly buoyed. I performed my tasks with determination, feeling an undeniable kinship with the woman whose life was a tapestry woven with hardship and grit. Yet, amidst this newfound purpose, the weight of my reality loomed large. Bills piled up in an untouched corner of my modest apartment, blinking reminders that time was running out. I had yet to find a job, and the gnawing fear began to seep into my working hours with the cleaner, making room for doubt. One evening as we were finishing up for the day, I mustered the courage to ask her about her own life. "How did you become the cleaner?" Her eyes glimmered in the fading light. "Each brush stroke, each corner scrubbed, it's all I have left of a life once filled with dreams," she replied, her voice low and laden with emotion. "I lost my family, you see. They thought I was mad, and eventually, they left. Cleaning became my salvation. It gave me control over something, even when everything else slipped through my fingers. I felt a pang in my chest. Her story mirrored my own fears. Would I lose everything too? I wanted so badly to ask her how to prevent that, but I held back, fearing the vulnerability. Just as hope threatened to escape me again, a sudden commotion erupted outside in the street. A group of tourists laughed loudly, drawing attention away from our quiet corner. A sense of normalcy revived around us, but just as quickly, it turned dark. Shouts rang out, and I blinked, frozen. A man was being pulled out of a nearby bar, his face contorted with rage, struggling against two people trying to calm him down. My heart raced as violence exploded within the seemingly mundane evening, and amidst all this chaos, it happened. In the moment when my pulse thundered in my ears, I suddenly spotted a glimmer of something silver catching the last rays of sunlight. Lying carelessly on the ground. A weapon? My heart sank at the sight. Instinctively, I grabbed the cleaner's arm. Her wise gaze met mine with something akin to understanding. "What do we do?" I whispered, throat dry with fear, just as my trembling hand pointed toward the unfolding chaos. In that instant, a realization hit me. Things were about to change again, for better or worse. I had fought so hard to find a way out of my darkness, but now the shadows were creeping back in, and the woman who had become my anchor was about to be swept into it with me. The air crackled with tension, and the looming threat sent tendrils of fear snaking through my body. The chaotic scene played out before us, and I could feel the cleaner's indomitable spirit anchoring me as I stood rooted to the spot, caught between the shadows and the flickering hope I had begun to harbor. "Stay close to me," she murmured, her voice steady, guiding me as we edged away from the escalating chaos. Her presence was a balm against the rising dread. Our breathing synchronized, even as the sound of shattering glass rang out just a few feet away, forcing us into a world teetering on the brink of violence. The tourists scattered, leaving behind their laughter like fallen leaves, while the man's furious yells echoed through the alley, a harbinger of the tumult that churned within me. I wanted to scream, to rush in and intervene, but the old woman's grip tightened around my wrist, grounding me with a fierce defiance. "Sometimes, we have to stand back," she whispered emphatically, her eyes fixed on the fray, studying the scene like a chess player contemplating their next move. "To protect ourselves and the things that matter most. But what if someone gets hurt?" My voice barely carried over the cacophony. Instead of answering, she took a breath, her gaze softening. "And what if this is a moment of rebirth? Sometimes, chaos births clarity." I drew in a shaky breath, hoping the world would settle into the routine I had just begun to find solace in. As the scene outside swallowed any remaining hints of serenity, I felt my mind whirl. The questions pounded through my heart. What did she mean by rebirth? Was there a glimmer of hope buried under the debris of nightmares? The shouts grew louder, creating a dissonant soundtrack to the turmoil bubbling inside. Suddenly, the situation escalated further. A flash of blue and red lights pierced through the alley's gloom as a police car skidded to a halt, sirens blaring, a dissonant symphony to my racing heart. Chaos met authority, a vacuum sucking in the remnants of safety. Stay here, don't move, the cleaner instructed, pushing me gently behind a dumpster, the gritty surface pressing against my back. I felt like a child again, witnessing a world I had thought I understood collapse before my eyes. She darted forward, propelled by a fierce determination. I watched in awe as she maneuvered through the throngs of people who began to gather around. "Mom!" A voice yelled, snapping me from my stupor. A police officer approached the cleaner, the dimming light catching the edge of the metal badge on his chest. "Step back, no!" she shouted, defiance coating her words harshly. "That man needs help. Do you see him? He needs a calm voice. Get behind the line." He barked, but I could see the compassion flickering in his eyes. He was lost among the urgency, and the old woman, fearless as ever, stood her ground. The struggle at the bar swirled in and out of focus, my heart beating in time with the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Fear and admiration coiled together, and I found myself longing to shield her from the storm as well as be a part of her fight. Then, she turned her head slightly, her gaze meeting mine across the fray. In that fleeting moment, she nodded, as if urging me to trust her, to believe in the good that could be born from the chaos. For the first time, I felt its spark of courage lighting my path through the disarray. Just as I was about to reach for her, a horrible sound, the unmistakable crack of a gunshot, shattered the air. Chaos erupted anew as people screamed and scattered. My heart plummeted. The reality of the situation hit like a freight train. Where was she? Terrified, I stumbled forward, my eyes darting wildly as the world blurred around me. In the heart of the frenzy, I caught sight of her as she extended a hand toward the man being restrained. "Stop! You can listen!" Just listen. The moment stretched infinitely, my belief tethered to a fear of loss. Everything I had begun to understand, the fleeting hope she had rekindled within me, felt now on the verge of evaporating into thin air. And then, an unexpected figure lurched towards the woman, the man from the bar, his rage transformed into desperation, eyes wild with fear. In the ensuing chaos, he stumbled, and with a horrifying realization, I saw the glimmer of metal in his hand, reflecting the dying light of day. No. I shouted, instinctively reaching for her, but the weight of the world crashed around us. The chance for clarity and rebirth hung in the balance, threatened by an unpredictable storm of fate. As the sirens wailed louder, I braced for the worst. Were we destined to be buried beneath the rubble of all we had struggled against? Would the clarity we sought be taken from us in a single heartbeat? The crisp night air filled with the promise of uncertainty. This moment strained against the fabric of my heart, looming as the unfathomable crescendo in a symphony of fear and courage, darkness and hope. The chaos continued to swirl like a tempest around me. I blinked against the blinding lights, unable to shake the image of the cleaner rushing toward danger. My heart pounded like a war drum, each beat a reminder of the gravity of the moment, each frantic breath a plea for her safety. No. Stay back. The police officer's voice cut through the din, but his urgency did little to quell the noise or the fear bubbling within me. The ground felt unstable beneath my feet as we stumbled further away from the chaos. I couldn't shake off the image of the man on the pavement, his desperate call for help echoing in my mind. Each step away from him pricked more at my conscience, a taut string threatening to snap under the weight of my decisions as Sophie clutched my arm, her voice barely above a whisper. "Are you okay? You're shaking." "I don't know," I admitted, forcing my breaths to stabilize. The fear that had settled in my chest felt like a lead weight, and I fought against it, trying to forge some semblance of clarity. Mabel shot me a worried glance as we weaved through the throngs of people making their way to safety. "We need to find somewhere more secure. They might start organizing shelters soon." "But what about Mark? Where was he?" With each passing moment, the thought of his absence twisted my gut. Panic surged anew, almost suffocating me as I realized I had no control over anything unfolding around us. Focus, I repeated, though I wasn't entirely sure whom I was trying to convince. Just focus on him. He'll be okay. Suddenly, a flicker of hope caught my eye. An elderly couple ahead, supporting each other as they navigated their way through the crowd. Despite the destruction surrounding them, they walked closely, exchanging whispered comforts amidst the chaos. There was something beautiful about their bond, a reminder that even in darkness, love offered a light. It brought tears to my eyes. I allowed myself a moment of envy for what they had, for a love that seemed to persist against all odds, no matter how grim the situation became. Look, Sophie said, pointing to a section of the parking lot where a group of volunteers had begun setting up a makeshift aid station. A murmuring crowd was gathering, some clutching jackets or backpacks, faces lined with both fear and determination. Let's see if we can get some information, Mabel suggested, her voice full of purpose. The three of us approached the corner where a woman in a bright yellow vest was directing others. "Excuse me," I called out, my voice hoarse. "Do you know if anyone has been found?" "Someone named Mark Easton." The woman turned, her expression softening as she scanned my eyes. "We're still organizing information, but we will do our best to keep people updated. Just stay close, all right? There might be more evacuations to come." A flash of frustration hit me. "We don't have time for that. I need to know if Hez all right now." Her gaze was steady, and though I could see that sympathy gleamed in her eyes, I felt a bitter ash rise in my throat. I was about to protest again when Sophie pulled my elbow gently, whispering urgently, "We need to stay calm." "For him, right?" "Right," I whispered back. But deep down, I felt like a rubber band stretched too tightly, ready to snap, and so we stood, standing by as the minutes stretched, the chaos morphing into an agonizing weight. It felt as though my insides were coiling tighter with each second that ticked painfully by. Then a familiar voice broke through the noise. "Hey! I'm here." "I'm all right," my heart leapt. I whipped around, chasing the sound, and there was Mark, standing apart from the crowd, his expression bewildered but intact. Relief surged through me like a tidal wave, drowning out the anxiety that had plagued me all night. "Mark!" I called, pushing my way through the crowd, struggling against the crush of people that stood between us. He turned toward me, his brow furrowing, and suddenly I could see the exhaustion lining his features, the small bruises beginning to bloom on his arms as if the night had also left its marks on him. "Are you hurt?" I asked, breathless, my eye scanning him for signs of injury. "No. Just shaken up. I was caught under some debris but managed to get out," he breathed, his relief palpable as he stepped toward me. Before I could process my next thought, we were in each other's arms, the world around us fading momentarily. "Thank God," I murmured, burying my face in the crook of his neck, allowing his warmth to anchor me. But just as relief washed over me, the ground tremored slightly, and the distant rumble of sirens intensified. The initial sweetness of reunion quickly twisted into anxiety once again, sending shivers through my spine. "Wait, there's something I need to tell you," Mark said, pulling back to look deep into my eyes. While I was trying to find a way out, I saw something. Before he could finish, an urgent shout cut through the air. "Everyone, this way!" Another danger's approaching, panic ignited in the crowd. I gripped Mark tighter as dread washed over me again, blurring the joy of our reunion. "Mark, what were you going to say?" I pressed. He opened his mouth, but just then, the ground shook more violently than before, sending us stumbling. In the chaos, I lost hold of his hand, and before I could turn to find him, people began to scatter away from the chaotic roar in the distance. Something more sinister than just the debris began to surface. "Mark!" I shouted, despair clawing at my throat. "Stay close!" he yelled, disappearing into the stampede of bodies. I could feel hope slipping through my fingers again, fear bubbling just beneath the surface, growing with every frantic step as I searched for him in the blur of frightened faces. Then, all at once, I felt a heavy weight settle over me, something darker than the chaos of the night itself. A gnawing suspicion that this was only the beginning, and whatever awaited us next would be veiled in shadows I couldn't yet comprehend. The air thickened with uncertainty as I fought against the tide of desperate souls rushing past me. My heart pounded a fierce rhythm of panic, and every desperate cry that echoed in the chaos felt like a knife twisting in my gut. "Mark!" I yelled again, but my voice was swallowed by the cacophony. My breath came in quick, shallow gulps as I pushed my way through the mass of bodies, my eyes scanning feverishly for even a glimpse of a flash of that familiar jacket, a wave of dark hair. But the faces around me merged into a blur of fear and anguish, each expression mirroring the storm that raged inside me. At that moment, a hand gripped my shoulder, steady and grounding. I turned to find a woman in a bright blue coverall, a janitor's uniform, her dark skin glistening with sweat under the harsh overhead lights. Her eyes were calm amidst the chaos. "You look lost, sweetheart," she said gently, her voice cutting through the din. "My boyfriend, he was just here," I stammered, panic twisting my throat. "Have you seen him?" She shook her head, her grip still firm on my shoulder. "I haven't, but I can help you. You need to stay focused." "What's your name?" "Emily," I breathed, tears threatening to spill as the dread nestled deeper in my chest. "Emily," she repeated, her voice soothing. "We're going to find him. I need you to breathe. In and out." She demonstrated, taking a slow, deliberate breath. I followed suit, trying to ground myself in her calm presence. "Can you trust me, eyes?" "I do," I replied, the words ending in a choked whisper. "Good. Let's move toward the aid station. There's bound to be more information there." She guided me with a steady hand, weaving through the throngs of people, her presence an unexpected anchor in the midst of the chaos. As we walked, I caught snippets of conversations, people relaying bits of haunting information, stories of love and loss swirling around us, painting vivid pictures of fears that resonated within me. But one voice stood out among the rest, a man shouting, "Another aftershock is coming. Stay back." The janitor stopped, turning slightly to assess the crowd's shifting demeanor. "We need to keep moving. Often the ground shakes once more after a major event like this." "I want you to stay close to me," she said firmly, her voice tightening around the edges. "Why are you so calm?" I asked, my lips trembling. "Because panicking won't bring anyone back, honey," she replied softly. "Sometimes we have to find strength that we didn't think we had. And kindness sometimes surfaces in the unlikeliest of places." Her words reverberated in my heart. In the midst of terror, the kindness of a stranger felt like a fragile thread connecting me to hope. We continued forward, but the shadows of fear threatened to take root in me again. "How do you know there's any hope?" I blurted, my voice betraying the raw emotion welling up inside me. "We don't always know," she said, glancing back at me with a spark of conviction in her eyes. "But there's always a sliver of light in the dark, we just have to be willing to see it." Just then, an earth-shaking rumble erupted from beneath our feet, and I stumbled, grasping for her hand. The ground bucked violently, a fierce tremor threatening to unleash the very depths of our darkest fears. "No!" I gasped, my heart racing uncontrollably as I desperately searched the crowd again, sheer terror clawing at my insides, wanting nothing more than to find Mark. "Stay low!" the janitor shouted. "Find something sturdy to hold on to." As I ducked instinctively, a frantic gasp slipped from my lips as I watched the makeshift aid station shudder, collapsing into itself with a sickening crunch. The crowd erupted into chaos. People screamed, others rushed in all directions, blinded by crushing panic. I lost sight of the woman as she maneuvered to help others. In the maelstrom, time seemed to slow, each second dragging painfully into a relentless eternity. I called out for Mark through the madness, but my voice felt small and insignificant against the chaos. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of a figure still standing amidst the tumult. It was Mark, looking back at me through the haze of despair. But before I could call out, a sharp crack split the air, and I watched in horror as debris fell toward him, spiraling into the space that separated us. "Mark!" I screamed, my voice piercing through the chaos, but I was too far away, too helpless. I surged forward, my heart racing as I fought against the crush, desperation fueling my every step. As the dust settled and the echoes of chaos faded, I stumbled toward the void he had once occupied, my breath catching in my throat. "Please, no," I whispered, fear curling around my heart like a vice. Yet in that breathless moment of dread, I noticed a small, crumpled piece of paper fluttering on the ground where Mark had stood. I reached for it, heart pounding as I picked it up with trembling hands. It was a note, hastily scrawled in his familiar handwriting. "Emily, I found something important. I'll explain later. Please stay safe." Was he saying he was still alive? I couldn't linger too long on the thought. My heart raced anew as I pushed through the debris-strewn path, determined to find him again, gripped by a wild hope that surged through me. But then, echoing in the distance, came a blaring siren more ominous than before. Unexpected allies, unexpected dangers. It seemed both were rising alongside the wreckage. I tightened my grip on the note, each heartbeat a loud reminder of the battle between hope and despair raging within me as I plunged deeper into the fray, desperate to uncover the truth he had whispered. The caffeine-fueled hum of the city streets felt alien as I made my way through the remnants of the disaster. Traffic lights flickered erratically, and the usual clamor of life was surreal. Once vibrant voices now reduced to muffled whispers. I clutched the note from Mark tightly, each crease engraved with a sense of urgency and mystery. What did he find? What was he trying to tell me before everything fell apart? The sirens continued to wail, their haunting sound a reminder that time was slipping away. Gingerly, I navigated through the scattered debris, still searching for a familiar face, praying my legs wouldn't give out beneath me. Each step came with a new wave of hopelessness, and I could almost feel the weight of despair urging me to stop, to surrender. But I couldn't. Not yet. "Emily! Over here!" I turned to the unexpected voice. It was Jamie, a friend from my college days, her panic-stricken face illuminated by the haunting glow of flashing lights. "I saw your boyfriend!" she yelled, urgency woven into her tone. My heart leaped in my chest, lively against the backdrop of destruction. "Where?" I managed, choking back tears. He was helping pull people out near the old flower shop, just a block away. "We have to hurry before what?" I didn't need her to finish the thought. My departure from the safety of my spot felt like a gamble with my heart and soul on the line. I grasped her hand, and together we pushed through the crowd, an unlikely duo bolstered by the hope of finding Mark. As we caught sight of the flower shop, my heart sank. The walls were charred, and a thick layer of smoke hung above, almost like it was mourning the loss of the lives it once sheltered. But I had to keep moving. I had to find him. Just as we hesitated at the threshold, a sudden crash erupted from behind the building. "Wait!" I screamed, dragging Jamie with me as we darted around to the rear, the sounds of groaning metal mingling with echoes of suspended breaths. "Mark!" I called again, my voice breaking through the sounds of chaos. Jamie clutched my arm, but I shook her off, desperation guiding me. I scanned the wreckage, my heart racing as I searched each shadow, each corner for a sign of him. "Look!" Jamie pointed, and I followed her gaze. Amidst the debris, a figure was crouched, silhouetted against the smoky haze. My heart raced anew. Mark, but a moment of crushing disappointment followed when I recognized the figure wasn't him, but a young girl, no more than 10, sitting on the ground, head buried in her arms. She was shaking, her long hair tangled around her tear-streaked face. "Hey, it's okay," I knelt beside her, gentle. "Are you hurt?" She looked up, eyes wide and terrified. "I can't find my mom," she whispered, her voice barely audible. My heart twisted. "What's your name?" "Ava, Ava," I repeated. "We're going to find her, I promise. Can you show me where you last saw her?" The girl nodded slowly, and the act of trusting me momentarily dimmed her fear. "Over there," she pointed toward the street, and suddenly, I felt a new weight pressing down. My own desperate search paled in comparison. Ava needed me just as much as I needed to find Mark. With Ava's small hand in mine, we skirted around the debris, Jamie keeping close behind. As we approached the main street, I caught sight of flashing lights and uniformed rescuers whose frantic efforts seemed nothing but a blur against the chaos surrounding us. The lay of the land twisted around me, grief and devastation mingling seamlessly with flickers of compassion. An elderly man in a beaded sweater knelt to comfort a collapsed woman beside him. A firefighter handed a young woman a bottle of water, her hands trembling as she received it. The stark contrast between hope and hopelessness felt visceral. Amid the vibrations of the city, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket. I fished it out, heart skidding to a halt when I saw the name flashing on the screen. Mark. Without thinking, I answered. Emily? His voice, though strained, wrapped around me like a lifeline. Mark. Where are you? I blurted, emotions crashing over me like waves. I am okay, but I can't get back. There's something here, something I found. You need to be careful. It's serious. What is it? What did you find? Before he could respond, an ear-splitting crack echoed in the air, silencing everything. Mark! I shouted, my pulse quickening. The ground beneath us trembled once again, and I felt Ava tighten her grip on my hand. The tremor was unpredictably a warning, a reminder that safety was an illusion. Emily, listen to me. Mark's voice shattered through the noise. You have to trust Megat to safety. Suddenly, a seismic jolt shoved us forward, sending both Ava and me sprawling. The world spun, and the last thing I heard before the line went dead was the haunting sound of crumbling metal, mingling with screams in the distance. The ground steadied again, but in the silence that followed, a new fear unfurled within me. I didn't know where Mark was, and the line had gone cold. All around us, the fallout of our world felt unforgiving, a host of fears converging into one. Ava looked at me, her eyes reflecting a world of fear I wished to shield her from, and with a heart brimming with uncertainty, dread began to settle like a shroud. Where are we going to find them? She asked, but her words felt like 1,000 echoes. It wasn't just her mother I was searching for, it felt as if I was losing Mark too. I don't know, sweetheart, I whispered, my heart racing. But I won't stop looking. In that moment of stark vulnerability, as we huddled amid the roar of chaos, a startling truth rippled through me. Just as I was grasping to find the one I loved, the family and community around us grappled with their own losses. Then came a whisper of color, something bright fluttering nearby. A folded piece of fabric, perhaps a remnant of life before the storm. I reached for it, an urgency igniting within, and as I unfolded it, a pulse of realization gripped me. It wasn't just fabric, it was a jacket caught in the wind. Dark hair against the bright sun, familiar, but I hadn't recognized in the sheer panic's Mark. I gasped as recognition flooded over me, but just as I began to piece together the fragments of hope, a distant scream shattered the moment, and my heart sank anew, this time, deeper and darker. Run! A voice thundered, and as I looked back, the world around me imploded once more, and I was left teetering at the edge of an unfathomable abyss. The earth shook once more, a violent reminder of the ruination nearby. I clutched Ava's small hand tighter, almost afraid to let go. The whirlwind of chaos spun around us, pulling at the edges of hope I had so delicately sewn back together. But as another wave crashed, the fabric of our reality tore. People running past us, fear etched across their faces, as sirens wailed, drowning out reason and direction. Where do we go? I screamed over the din, thrusting the question into the uncertain air as panic gripped my heart. Ava looked up, her eyes wide and shimmering with unshed tears. I don't know, she whispered, her voice trembling as she scanned the crowd. I felt a fierce protectiveness wash over me, determined to shield her from this storm of uncertainty. Suddenly, a powerful presence cut through the noise. A man, tall and aged, pushed his way through the chaos. With an improbably serene expression, he had a calmness that contrasted sharply with the screams and uncertainty around us. Follow me, he called, a hint of warmth tugging at the corners of his mouth, almost like a beacon in this darkened landscape. Without hesitation, I squeezed Ava's hand and nodded, encouraging her to follow. Maybe this man was our chance. We rushed forward together, working our way through the throng, the man's solid frame leading us toward a safer place, the two of us flanking him like a pair of lost puppies. As we moved, a sudden impulse surged within me. Wait! What's your name? I shouted at the stranger, hoping it might anchor me, ground me in this sea of chaos. David, he replied, glancing back briefly, eyes vigilant but soft, a reassuring blend as we continued moving. Thank you for helping us, I managed to say, gratitude spilling over with each stride. He nodded, a silent acknowledgement that filled the air with an unexpected warmth, like sunlight breaking through the clouds. Before long, we reached a temporary shelter, a makeshift triage filled with the injured and lost souls clinging to remnants of hope. David turned to us, his expression shifting. Sit here, he instructed, motioning to a bench pushed against the wall of a nearby building. As we planted ourselves down, the muted sounds of the world became more prominent, and I turned to Ava, brushing the hair from her tear-soaked cheeks. "Are you all right?" I whispered, brushing away the grime that had settled on her face like a shroud. She nodded, but her small body trembled, betraying her brave facade. "I want my mom," she whimpered, each word slicing through me. "I know." "I do too," I said, the lump in my throat growing heavier. "But we'll find her together. I promise." In that moment, the unnerving void inside me echoed the same fear and longing that had taken root in Ava. It was a haunting reflection of the darkness that loomed larger with each passing minute. As I sat there, cradling her small hands in mine, a figure caught my eye, an older woman, weary but holding a bouquet of fresh wildflowers, moving from one injured person to another. With gentle patience, she offered each bloom a piece of comfort amid the despair. I marveled at the small yet profound act of kindness. In such turmoil, beauty still lingered, fragile yet resolute. "Oh, Emily." Ava's voice broke through my thoughts. I turned to her, and she pulled something from the pocket of her small jacket. "I found this." It was a weathered silver locket, one side still polished, the other bearing scratches that told tales of wear. "Where did you find that, sweetheart?" I asked, my heart racing with curiosity. "I don't remember. I thought it would help." "Maybe it belonged to my mom?" she said. The sight of it brought an unexpected wave of recognition. "No. It can't be," I gasped, the possibility clawing its way into my heart. But just as Ava's eyes widened in hope, the world exploded into chaos once again. The ground beneath us shuddered, knocking the wildflower-bearing woman off her feet. The air filled with dust and shouts, and I instinctively ducked, pulling Ava down with me. "Stay low," David instructed, his authoritative voice threading through the cacophony. My heart raced. As I peeked through the haze, scanning the chaos for any sign of what might happen next. "Mark," I whispered, the name a prayer, a hope I clung to, as the darkness crept closer. Just then, a figure emerged from the crowd, a group of rescuers pulling someone from the wreckage. My heart leaped, a flicker of hope igniting inside me once again. "Is that?" I started, half hopeful and half anxious. Then as their silhouettes came into focus, reality crashed upon me like a tidal wave. "No," I gasped, a cold shiver traveling down my spine. Because amongst them was not Mark, but a body bag, the fabric stark against the rubble, a chilling silence hanging in the air. Without thinking, I leaped to my feet, a primal instinct taking over. "Mark!" I screamed, my voice slicing through the atmosphere, a chaotic symphony of fear. But nothing answered the soft murmur of hope, not even an echo. Only the insurmountable weight of despair pressed against my chest like a cruel reminder of loss. Time seemed to stretch as I watched the scene unfold, caught in a moment of dreadful anticipation, praying the figure in the bag wouldn't be him. And just as uncertainty wrapped around me like a suffocating shroud, a sigh reached my ears, a name, barely audible but unmistakable. "Emily." My heart stopped. It was Mark's voice, broken, but unmistakably there, weaving through the chaos as I turned towards the sound. But at that instant, as I twisted around in fervent hope, I felt the world shift, the ground open beneath me, and with it, the promise of impending darkness that overshadowed everything. I stumbled, grappling for balance as the earth beneath me quaked once more. The screams of chaos surged to a crescendo, drowning out everything else, and I could barely breathe. But then, above the clamor, his voice a beacon amidst the storm. "Emily." I turned back toward the body bag, heart hammering in my chest. Pushing past the fear clawing at my throat, I searched frantically through the throng surrounding it. "Mark!" I cried again, desperation lacing my voice, willing him to respond. David, still beside us, gripped my shoulder, his eyes wide with worry. "Stay calm. We need to," but I didn't hear the rest. The sheer force of my racing thoughts drowned him out. With a jolt, I realized Ava had let go of my hand, her small figure slipping away, caught in the chaos. "Ava!" I shouted, panic rushing through me, but my voice felt so distant amidst the cacophony. Time twisted itself around me, momentarily warping everything into a slow-motion blur as I searched. "Over here." A slender figure emerged from the shadows, Ava, kneeling beside an unconscious man whose face lay in a grim expression. With a clench of my stomach, I rushed to her side. "Don't touch him," I cautioned, pulling her back, though beneath my surface, my heart sank, visions of loss flashing before my eyes. Suddenly, the sounds of chaos shifted as a team of medics surged toward us, their uniforms a stark contrast against the wreckage. Their movements were precision itself as they navigated the disaster. One particularly tall man, his face firm but lined with exhaustion, knelt next to Ava and surveyed the body. "It's going to be okay, kiddo. We're going to take care of him," he said, his voice low and soothing. Ava swallowed, the spark of fear lingering in her eyes. I could feel her anxiety radiating through the air, mingling with my own anguish. As the medics worked furiously, I caught sight of David helping another injured person. I was torn between the need to stay with Ava and the urgency that pulled me toward them. "Mark," I whispered again, letting the name linger in the air like a prayer, a longing so raw it threatened to drown me. Just then, a slight movement caught my eye. Hope flickered in my chest. The body bag started to shift, and I felt my pulse quicken. Adrenaline coursed through my veins as the medics pulled the zipper down, revealing a sheet covering someone else. No, I shook my head, tears blurring my vision. The world around me blurred as despair surged forward, twisting my insides into knots. I needed to focus, I needed to find Mark, or I might collapse into the void of hopelessness altogether. Suddenly, a voice broke through my despair. "Emily!" I turned just as a kind face appeared, an older woman, worn but resolute, wearing a soiled uniform and carrying a broom. "Come here, dear," she urged gently, beckoning me closer. Her eyes held warmth that cut through the chaos like a ray of sunlight piercing the darkness. "Help, I need to find him," I stammered, confusion flooding me as I saw her crouch down beside Ava, wiping the dirt from her face with tender care. "Let's breathe for a moment, all right?" she said softly. "I'll help you as best as I can." Ava looked up, her big eyes reflecting both fear and the tiniest ember of trust. I felt a glimmer, a thread of hope, as I inhaled deeply, grounding myself again. Slowly, amidst the whirlwind, I let the woman guide us to a quieter corner of the makeshift shelter. "Why are you here?" I asked, trying to regain composure while Ava held onto my hand harder than before. The woman smiled softly. "Sometimes, we appear where we are needed the most, you know? I may just be a cleaner, but every small act of kindness matters." I nodded, her words stitching a fragile patch over my burgeoning despair. "Thank you," I whispered, gratitude swelling in my chest. But my heart still raced, and I couldn't dispel the feeling that some dark force loomed closer, weaving itself deeper into the chaos surrounding us. I guided Ava to comfort her, when the loudspeakers suddenly crackled to life, announcing in a strained voice, "Attention! We have begun the search for loved ones. Please come forward to the administration area if you're looking for anyone." At that moment, everything inside me erupted, a conflation of emotion exploding with renewed purpose. "Ava, we have to go. We might find him there." Before I could think, I bolted toward the announcement, clutching Ava close to me. But as we pushed through the mass of fear-stricken faces, everything shifted again. A distant rumble filled the air, and I gasped, glancing around as people began to panic, the lights flickering ominously. And just as I turned back towards the commotion, a piercing scream broke through the chaos, fading into the distance. An electrifying charge ran through me, a terrible realization blooming. What if it was him? What if it was Mark? The world crumbled before me, the strings of hope I was trying to knit together unraveling again at the edges. Just as I thought the fiery chaos was behind us, waves of desperation washed over me anew. Each moment felt like a countdown. If I didn't find Mark soon, I would lose him forever. The thought tore at me like a predator, sharper than the piercing sirens in the distance. Ava clutched my hand, her small fingers grasping tightly as we moved through the throng, both of us driven by a longing that transcended fear. "Mark?" I called, my voice lost under the cacophony of rescuers shouting commands and people crying out for lost loved ones. I felt as if I was running through an endless maze, twisting and turning, each corner taking me further away from the one person I desperately needed to reach. Each step weighed on me, the burden of uncertainty pressing down like lead on my heart. With determination forged through shared fear, we pressed on through the disorienting haze. David's voice echoed in my mind. Stay calm, we can't help anyone if we don't stay safe. I channeled that strength into my frantic search, but each passing second added to my spiraling dread. Suddenly, a tremble in the ground signaled another aftershock. Stay close, Ava, I urged, crouching as the chaos stepped up again. I had to focus, I had to keep us both anchored in this sea of despair. As the earth shook beneath us, I felt my heart lurch nervously. It was then I caught a glimpse of him. Through the drift of smoke and faces blurred with confusion, I saw the familiar figure of Mark emerging, moving through the crowd, his eyes wild with fear and relief. Me soul's anchor. Emily! He shouted, his voice a lifeline threading through chaos. Mark! I screamed back, the last shreds of fear falling away as I sprinted toward him, the world narrowing into that singular focus. I grabbed hold of him, colliding with my greatest desire turned tangible. He swept me into his arms, and in that moment, the destruction and despair around us melted away, leaving only us. Are you okay? Are you hurt? I asked, surveying him, my fingers trembling against his stubble. Where did you go? Nothing mattered more than knowing he was safe, and I felt the weight of everything I had lost begin to lift, but only slightly. I am fine. I thought I lost you, he said, his voice cracking under emotion. His gaze darted around, filled with palpable vulnerability. Something happened. There was this noise, and then he trailed off, and I saw his mind racing, trying to process everything, just as mine had. David helped me get to safety, I said, my breath still shaking. And Wetomi, you were everything through this chaos. For the first time, I truly understood that hope wasn't merely a flicker of light in the dark, it was a deep, unwavering fire that we struggled to ignite together. But before I could bask in the moment of reunion, the ground rumbled once more, violently enough to send shockwaves through the remnants of our lives. I felt the oppressive weight of uncertainty building again, creeping back through the spaces we had fought to reclaim. Panic erupted in the gathering crowd, eyes wide with terror as new chaos bloomed in uncertain anticipation. People screamed and scattered like leaves in a storm, and the sirens wailed again, sending fresh waves of dread racing through me. Mark, we need toy began, feeling the energy shift beneath us. But then, there was another distinct sound, a rumbling that wasn't the trembling earth. Something heavy, catastrophic, was on the horizon. In a flash, the air turned electric, and the shadows took form. An emergency vehicle backfired, a line of crushed hopes manifesting as debris began to fall dangerously overhead, tumbling like angry rain in the swirl of chaos. Run! I screamed, pulling Mark by his arm. I could feel the pull of destiny tugging at my very soul, a drive deeper than survival, a drive to protect what we had reclaimed. In that split moment, amid a whirlwind of falling chaos, something beautiful emerged. I caught sight of Mabel the cleaner, the woman who had sparked something in our shared experience. She stood resolutely, directing a group of frightened survivors safely toward a side exit, her calm demeanor a shining light amidst the din and rubble. Over here! She commanded, standing defiantly in the midst of the pandemonium. Stay with her! I shouted to Mark, who hesitated, concern and fear etched on his face. I can't leave you. He protested, but the ground shook around us, reminding us of the urgency of the moment. Just go. I'll be right behind you. I insisted, my voice cutting through the chaos like the resolve in my heart. I watched as he struggled for a moment, but the pull of survival won over, and instinctively, he rushed toward her once more. I pushed toward the exit, toward safety, my heart thundering with each step, willing the fear to dissipate, willing destiny to grant us another chance. But in the fray, my breath caught in my throat when I felt Ava's small hand slip out of mine. As I turned around searching for her, my pulse quickened. Ava! I yelled, panic flooding through me. Mark's brow furrowed, his eyes darting back and forth between the chaos and the fleeing crowd. We can't leave her. She was right behind me. I cried, fighting the surge of dread threatening to consume me as I turned and tore through the chaos, my heart racing with anguish. Then, suddenly, I spotted her, crouching near a fallen beam. Ava! I called, rushing toward her, fear colliding with desperation. I can't move. She whimpered, her little body trembling. I dropped down beside her, my heart breaking as I looked at the beam pinning her against the ground, an anchor of despair clasping her tightly. "Ava, I'm right here," I said, wrapping my arms around her. "We're going to get you out." I glanced around, searching for help, but the frantic cries around me were a dark undertone to the world closing in. "Emily, give me your arm," Mark shouted, rushing back through the maze of debris, steadfast determination glowing in his eyes. I was nearly paralyzed by the sense of hopelessness that clung like shadows, but the fierce love for Ava surged anew. "Hold on, sweetheart," I said, trying to calm her as she sobbed quietly against me. "Help!" I cried, feeling time slip through my fingers. Then Mark was at my side, pushing against the beam with all his strength, and I felt the rush of hope and fear intermingling in my chest. "On three," he murmured, determination gleaming like gold in his eyes. 1, 2, 3, with an otherworldly push, the beam shifted upward, and I squeezed Ava's shoulders. "Now! Come on, Ava!" I urged, and she squirmed free from the wreckage while I pulled her into my arms. "I got you." We stumbled back, the ground quaking with renewed fury. My heart swelled with relief as she buried herself against my shoulder, her small frame quivering. But I didn't have time to celebrate. I felt the very air shake around us. "We have to go," Mark said urgently, taking my hand, pulling us toward safety. We weaved through the final flickers of chaos, the flickering lights illuminating the eerie serenity of the shaking ground. Finally, as we reached the side exit bathed in dim orange light, something shifted in the air. A moment of suspension hung between us, and I turned back for a split second to see Mabel standing firm amid the chaos, directing others toward safety. In that instant, the connection we shared crystallized into a powerful truth. She had reminded us of the resilience of kindness, fighting against the darkness. The universe had sent her to us when we needed it most, a hidden light in our collective shadows. Mark squeezed my hand tighter as we burst into the street, the city sprawling in disarray before us. But it didn't matter, everything was still intact, woven tightly between us. Each of our breaths felt like an echo of a heartbeat, a vitality pulsing with hope. Later, surrounded by neighbors and strangers alike finding comfort in shared suffering, Mark's blazing gaze captured mine. "We did it," he breathed, though those words held a weight heavier than mere survival. Around us, chaos continued to swirl, but I felt an anchor deepen in my heart, a connection sparked by resilience and forgiveness. In the aftermath of despair, we realized that while we couldn't escape the shadows, we could foster light. The kaleidoscope of humanity around us shimmered with small acts of kindness, a flower offered, a comforting word shared, the profound truth that love prevailed. With Mark's resolute grip on my hand, I turned to Ivan, who gazed up with wide eyes filled with newfound courage. We were scared, yes, but we were together. I knew, without a moment's doubt, that we would heal. "Let's go home," I said, feeling the weight of life's fragility settle lightly yet profoundly on my heart. As we stepped forward, hand in hand, into an uncertain world, I leaned into Mark, and I knew I would never forget this journey or the lessons woven into this tapestry of loss and love. And in the deepest corners of my soul, I understood it completely now. It was not the moments of chaos that defined us, but the fleeting sparks of kindness and bravery only visible against the darkest backdrops. The last tremors of the night faded, and we stepped forward into dawn, a powerful ray of hope breaking over the horizon, reminding us we were survivors. Even in the face of life's harshest lessons, in the aftermath of chaos, one truth remained eternal: the bonds we share light the way home.